Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Town Talks. This is November 2021. Our show today is one that is really near and dear to my heart. Let me first start by saying that all veterans and family members, thank you for your service to this majestic country of ours and for continuing to ensure that our country is the land of the free because of your bravery. Danville is grateful to the veterans who have and are serving our country or our nation as a whole. This is definitely one of those times where when we say we give thanks, we definitely give thanks to our veterans. And Danville is very, very thankful for the veterans that we have in our community, as well as everywhere else in this United States and the world, for keeping us safe. For your devotion to America yesterday, today, and every day, I wanted to start by saying a heartfelt thank you to all of you. I am so happy today to have some of our veterans from locally from our area, as well as some guests that you'll hear from in a little bit as well. Today, my broadcast will include, and I'm going to name the names here, is Dennis Giacovelli. If you could just raise your hand and let everybody know where you are. Bill Green, Lee Halverson, Yolanda Jolie Vega, Mike Conklin. We've got Charles Earthman and Nathan Johnson. Thank you all for being here today. I wanted to go ahead and start with Dennis. Now, Dennis, behind you is the Veterans Building. It's the Veterans Building, the Memorial Building, the San Ramon Valley. And you also have a Huey behind you, it looks like. It's a Viet Nam Huey. What does that bring back memories for you? And why do you have that behind you today?
Well, the Huey is the iconic Viet Nam picture, and for us, it's a sound. The noise that the rotors make is kind of a whop noise, and there's a few around. You'll hear them mostly during the summer fly overhead. We place that there to remind us and to remind the community that we're still here, we're still serving the community, and this is what it's going to look like on Thursday. It's going to look just like this.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So people can see a piece of history as well. You know, the Veterans Building holds a lot of memorabilia and opportunities for people to go in and educate themselves on past wars as well as what's going on currently. Can you tell us a little bit about what type of exhibits you'll be having that day?
This week, Thursday through Sunday, in the main hall downstairs, we once a year put on a open house museum. This is, we bring in our own displays. Different organizations are making them right now. And this year's theme is the end of World War II. Last year was the 75th anniversary of that. Of course, we weren't able to do anything last year. Right. So this year, that's the overlying theme, but the underlying theme is we all pitched in. We have a little bit of every ethnic group that participated in World War II. We have Tuskegee Airmen, we have Philippines, we have Italian, we have Polish, we have a little bit of everybody who helped. And that hopefully we can instill upon our youth that it's a world full of different people. We're not all the same, but we all helped.
We are all, yeah.
We'll be there until Sunday.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And, you know, speaking of that, you know, when you go on a battlefield, you're not going on a battlefield with just because of the fact, like you said, diversity is something that does not sit on a battlefield. It is something you work together as a team. And I feel that a lot of times our country needs to, my father used to say, and I know I'll bring this up a few times, but he used to say, this country needs a war because it brought people together. And I know that's a very strange way of bringing people together, but it made people realize that there are no borders, there are no lines between how we work as a team. And he was one to say that very often, to say when people started to get polarized, that it was the best way to do that is to show people that we all work as one, no matter who we are. You also were in the military for some time. Can you tell us a little bit about your background in the military and what you're doing now?
I joined right out of high school. I spent 1 year in junior college and wasn't interested in the time, and joined the Navy mostly to get out of being in the Army. They drafted me 2 months after I joined anyway, but I was already in the Navy. So at the time, the Navy was very heavy into river boats. PBRs especially. I had the chance to join a small new group of boats that was, I don't know if you've seen Apocalypse Now, but the star of that movie is a PBR, a riverboat, and we were smaller than that. So
Wow.
we were an elite group that were fast, low, and very quiet. So I spent 1970 in Vietnam and got out, did a couple of things, Treasure Island, and then got out, went to college, and I've been an architect for the past 45 years. Still working.
That's wonderful. So, but now you've taken on a really big role as well with the vets this year. Can you tell us about that?
This past year and now next year, I will be the president of Viet Nam Veterans of Diablo Valley. But I'm also very involved in the veterans building itself. I'm head of the operating committee, so, and also the library and historical committee, a member. So that's the group that puts on this open house on Veterans Day weekend.
Staying a part of it, that's a great contribution to us as in Danville that you do that, and we so appreciate it, as well as to all the veterans that live in the area that are able to come by and see that. You know, you do throughout the year, you do a lot of different events as well, and I know that some of the other veterans that are on here today participate in that. One of them is the corned beef and cabbage, which I'm hoping is back again this year.
It is.
Are we crossing our fingers, or, you know, yeah, I'm hoping that it's back this year, because that's always a really fun and exciting event. I know we missed the Super Bowl parties and the crab feeds and all of that, and I look forward to those every year as well. You know, speaking of that, you know, I wanted to talk to Bill for a second. Bill, you have some interesting stories to tell when it comes to the reason how you got into the military and how you went in kicking and screaming. And I thought I'd ask you a little bit about how, since I've got you out, I'm going to take you off mute and put you, I don't know, you've got yourself on mute right now, Bill, but I'll tell you what, you, in 1967, you didn't want to go into the military, from what I understand. You went in kicking and screaming. Is that true? He's finding his mute button. See, this is modern technology at its best.
There we go.
There he is. Hi, Bill.
Hello. How are you doing?
Good
to be here, Renee.
Yeah, good to have you.
May of '67, I had lost a friend that I'd gone to college with, and in the Marine Corps in Vietnam. And Hugh Roach was killed in the spring of '67. I went down and tried to enlist in the Army. I wasn't crazy enough to be a Marine. I said, I'll take the Army, thank you. I tried to enlist for Special Forces, but because I had asthma, they wouldn't accept me. And I thought I was free from the military after that. I wasn't physically fit enough to join. In August of 67, they drafted me into the Army. I volunteered infantry airborne and ended up going to Vietnam in January of 68.
So 7 months after, you were on the ground, on war and fighting for the country. 7
Yes.
months later, after
Yes.
kicking and screaming. But that's not where it ended, right? I mean, you went up in rank pretty fast. So obviously, tell us about that a little bit.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, please?
You said you mentioned to me that you had, your rank when you went back to Vietnam, that, you went in and your rank went up pretty fast. I mean, you got promoted fairly fast compared to what most people do in the military.
Yeah, I went to Vietnam, a private E2 in January of 68. In June of 68, I was a sergeant in charge of a squad. My first 6 months in Vietnam, I walked the point for the 3rd platoon. After that, I took over the 3rd squad of the 3rd platoon for my rest of my tour.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow. Now, you didn't come back basically, as I say, in one piece. You came back with, and you can say Bronze Stars because that's definitely an award. But a Purple Heart is something that you receive. Tell us about that.
And it's for standing in the wrong place at the wrong time. Okay. The 2 Bronze Stars, I'm also quite proud of for Battlefield of Valor. The 2 Purple Hearts, once again, standing in the wrong place at the wrong time. I got hit with the booby trap on April 1st, April Fool's Day of 68. And then later in the year, I received heavy shrapnel from both hand grenades and mortars. Okay.
And you took a little bit of time off. You went to Hawaii, and that was a good thing.
In my 9th month, I asked my fiancee Peggy to meet me in Hawaii, and we got married and had a 4-day honeymoon, and that was the highlight of my Vietnam experience, my honeymoon in Hawaii.
Oh,
From there, I returned back to Vietnam and finished off my last 3 months.
When you came back, though, I know I've heard these stories from my father as well. When he came back from Vietnam, he was there in the early 60s. And when he came back, the reception wasn't as it is now when we see our heroes come back from the war. It was quite different. We came back, my mother and my brother and I, we were living down in Southern California at the time while he was in Vietnam, so we could be close to my aunt and family. And when he came back, one of the things he asked for was to go to Germany, because I know that there was so much unrest in the United States at the time with war and all that. And he often spoke of, in a general way of how they weren't accepted. You weren't accepted back. And I know that you've told me this story before, and it brought tears to my eyes because it did resonate. Tell us about that with the parade with Danville and what happened.
Well, 25 years later, Vietnam Vets started in 1991, and that was the first year we marched in the Danville Parade, the 4th of July parade. Norma Halleck was our president at that time, and he had us dressed in white hats, white shirts, blue pants, white shoes. Obviously, Norm was a Navy guy, and he dressed us to look like Navy guys. We had a banner representing, the Vietnam vets, the Diablo Valley. And as we marched down the street, now this is 1991, and Desert Storm was just concluding, and patriotism was riding quite high in the United States at that time. And as the Vietnam vets went down the street there in Danville, people stood up and started applauding us and cheering us. And we didn't know how to take that. It was something that we never had experienced. Okay. And I know if I looked to my left and right, we all had sunglasses on. It was a typical hot summer day, but you could see the tears rolling down behind the sunglasses. And one person turned around and said, "Where the hell were these people 20 years ago?" Yeah, so that was hard for us to take.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to catch my breath here because I can completely relate to that in a sense that I've seen it, and you all deserved that. And if it hasn't been said to you before, that level of gratitude for what you've done for our country cannot be repaid in those ways. And it is a situation that we've lived with. Its history, and hopefully that never repeats itself, because you obviously went there, and even though you went kicking and screaming, we some of us went, enlisted and did it anyways. But
you use the term kicking and screaming. Don't forget, okay. I volunteered to go there.
That's right. That's right. No, to get into the military, but not to go to Vietnam and fight for our country. I got that. The thing is also is you haven't stopped since this happened and everything else. You've been going around and having talks, and you've been meeting with people and kids in schools and keeping this alive. Where's the last time you said, how many people have you spoken to so far, and what exactly does this entail when you go to these places?
The Speakers Bureau of the Vietnam Vets of the Danville Valley has been in existence for a while, but we didn't start counting the amount of students and adults we have spoken to until 2002. And in 2002 to today, we've spoken to over 90,000 students and adults, okay, throughout the Tri-Valley, but not just in the Tri-Valley. I've been asked to speak as far away as New Jersey, okay, and throughout the Bay Area. I've done New Jersey, I've done Ohio, and of course, this was on by computer on Zoom or whatever they call it, because I'm not computer friendly. And what we cover is statistics about Vietnam that most people do not know. Only 25% of the 2.5 million Americans that served in Vietnam were drafted. That means 75% of those that served in Vietnam volunteered military service. And this is a number that is shocking to people. Of the 58,000 names on the wall, over 10,000 names did not die in combat. They died of something other than combat or at the hands of the enemy. The youngest person on the wall in Washington, D.C. is only 15 years old. He lied about his age to get in the military. There are several 16 and 17-year-olds also on that wall who also lied about their age. People don't realize it's not just men that are on that wall. There are 8 women on that wall in Washington, D.C., and they're all nurses. And these are just some of the statistics from the DOD that we tell the students and the teachers, because a lot of them are quite surprised at some of these statistics. We also cover Agent Orange, the poisoning, and the effects on our veterans. And we also cover post-traumatic stress disorder, okay, which I am a partake of that, okay. We will cover how we got into the service, what our responsibilities were in Vietnam. We do not tell war stories. We just try to cover facts, okay. As a matter of fact, I spoke to the school Wednesday of this week in Sebastopol, and I'll be going back to Sebastopol with Jerry Ahiro in 2 more weeks to do another class up there.
So important to keep that history alive. And I must say that it was an era where men and women both stood up because they wanted to protect our country, and it was pride of country. Such a wonderful feeling of unity. And I know that my father also got into the military the same way because of that. My son-in-law enlisted in the military right after 9/11. because he wanted to protect and protect his country. And as you know, my father passed away in 1996 of Agent Orange cancer, obviously from being sprayed in Vietnam and having the effects of that, which it's interesting because when I have the opportunity to talk to many of you at events, the amount of you that still have lingering effects from Agent Orange. So it's just a very moving opportunity and to listen to these stories. You're also very much involved with the memorial building as well. So you're still involved as well with the memorial building. And I believe you were president, weren't you, last year? Is that correct?
It was a couple of years ago. I was president for 3 years of the Vietnam Vets Danville Valley. And probably three wonderful years. I really enjoyed my presidency there. Okay. Couple of things I'd like to add, and I know you've got a limited amount of time here, but on my talk, when I talked about going to Hawaii and marrying my wife, that was 53 years ago. God bless her. She still puts up with me 53 years later. I love that woman dearly. On our speaking, our speakers bureau, when we speak to schools, it's the teachers that get us in there. And we have some really wonderful dedicated teachers at Cal High, Foothill High, Livermore High, and down through the valley. The two hardest schools for us to get into to speak at is Monte Vista and San Ramon. And we just haven't been able to find a teacher there to get us in to talk to their history classes, which really surprises me because this is our hometown.
It is, yeah.
So
That's an
if
interesting
anybody
comment.
out there has strings with Monte Vista or San Ramon, please call me.
We'll keep that up there. We'll keep that
Thank
up
you.
there on the list because it's definitely important. So Lee, I see you're sitting in front of the Danville Hotel, and I wanted to, first of all, you're one of the longest residents here. I mean, your family's history here in Danville. This is the, if I can say that, right? You've been here for over 50 years in Danville?
Well, my dad moved us back to Danville in '55 from Saratoga, where I spent some formative years, and I went to Charlottewood and Monterey and San Ramon High. The family's been here a little longer than that. Overall, my great-grandfather got here back in 1860s.
So, you're not only just a veteran, but you also sit on our, Heritage Resource Commission. And you've, done so much with the community as well as, kept our history alive, which is so important as well. But you served in Vietnam. You were in Vietnam. Tell us about your experience.
Well, I got there early as an E1, a private E1. I was one below Bill. Bill outranked me at the time. I wasn't promoted quite as fast, but I did make Lance Corporal E3 before I left that tour. We got to Vietnam as replacement troops in March of 1966 at the Da Nang Air Base, where my battalion was serving as security for the base. They had the companies positioned around the base to protect against infiltration. Originally was a food service technician, a cook for the Marine Corps. But in lieu of that, while we were there at the air base, I used to run above ground aviation fuel pipeline patrols as a private, lowest one in the probably the pecking order out of the patrol. But we ran those while I was there, and I also stood guard in the ammo dump, which is not a good place to be when you receive rockets. But fortunately, we moved from there on out to the south of Da Nang, and I served on a hill with the company, and then back to battalion headquarters on Hill 55, where we spent most of the year.
You also have a Purple Heart.
That's correct.
And
yeah, that was a lucky one. Not too many cooks received Purple Hearts, and it wasn't from a stove blowing up on me. We were out on serving as battalion security on an operation down in the Mekong Delta in January of 1967, and I had been out on a listening post, and we came back a little early before the sunrise, and the wind was blowing the wrong direction. They didn't hear our counter thing, and they had someone from behind us fired into the line, and there was some return fire, and a couple of us got hit with an M14 round that actually hit three of us. It hit a corporal in the leg next to me, and the part of the lead hit me in the shin, and the jacket went down and hit somebody else down the line. So it was an
Wow.
interesting Purple Heart, but nonetheless, it was received during a combat operation.
So the exposure to Agent Orange was, I mean, obviously you were probably in a better position than most because you weren't, you know, directly on a combat field in a sense of being sprayed, but you still had exposure to it.
Oh,
correct?
absolutely. Yeah, I'm currently receiving benefits for Agent Orange. I've got the diabetes too, and also, and it's being held in abeyance by diet and so forth. So it's not really bad like some other people have had it.
But you're still continuously involved with Danville in many ways. Like I said, not just from a veteran's perspective, but also from, you know, being on our commissions and helping out with history. So tell us what you do with the veterans, with the memorial. I always see you, you're there in your office all the time. So if somebody wants to meet Lee, you just have to go in and make a right, and he's right there. But
Yeah, I park myself down here 6 days a week. We have docents operating the building from 9 to 3, Monday through Friday, and then we have a veterans coffee, drop-in coffee on Saturday mornings. So I help coordinate the VSOs down here. I belong to all four of the major VSOs and a couple others, and help coordinate their activities and scheduling for the building. And just participate in about everything I can. Historically, interesting enough, in addition to the Heritage Resource Commission, I also serve on the board of the San Juan Valley Historic Society. So we're
right.
sometimes putting in plaques and recognition of buildings and sites aside from what the town does.
So speaking of that, you also are very busy with all the cooking as well. I mean, you're always at all of those events as well. So you're always, you know, like with the Chiopino feeds and everything else that you all do, you're always very active in all of those things. So you also are with American Legion, you put on events for that. You pretty much have your hand in quite a few things around town. But, you know, one of the things that I find most fascinating is the fact that when you go to the Vets Hall from 9 to 3, anybody can go and take a tour and see the displays. You can go in, it's like it's a historical museum, and you have an entire library of books. To me, it's so fascinating. What era does it start at as far as the historical items that you have, and where does it end? What's the time frame?
When we opened the building back in 2012, we decided that we cut it off at World War I and forward. If we went back too far, we'd go, you know, probably go back to the wars in Greece or something. So we had to be very limited because of our display area. So we start with World War I. As you come inside the door and swing around the corner, you hit a panel of Korea, and then the majority of the space there is World War II. And then across the hall on the other side is Viet Nam, and then our sandbox wars, as some people like to call them, that happened at Desert Storm and later happened over in the Southwest Asia.
You know, what an interesting thing, because, you know, we have so much history in our backyard, and Bill, you had mentioned it as well, as, you know, getting into the high schools and letting them see the history that we have in our backyard, giving them the tours and having the kids go through there, and adults. I found it fascinating. I know that I've given you things from my father to put on display during, you know, Veterans Day and things like that. And it's a great opportunity to go see what the history and the actual pieces from history. They're not remakes. They are the actual items that were used in war or worn during the war. What a fabulous time to go down there and just take a look at all that and suck all that history in that we have right on Hearts. You know, all you have to do is go down Hearts and walk in the building, and it's right there. You know, speaking of that, I wanted to talk, because we talked about wars and moving forward. I've had the opportunity to sit with Yolanda Vega at a table a few times at different events. And this is a difficult one for me to talk about. And Yolanda, you're here for a different reason. When my son-in-law was in the military, I'm a mother-in-law to a military individual, and he is. I was considered more of a Blue Star mom. The other level, and I shouldn't say level, but the other group is called a Gold Star mom. And Yolanda, tell us, what is a Gold Star mom? And we've got you on mute. We're going to take you off mute there. You're still on mute. Let me see here. There you go.
Good morning, everyone. I don't know why my picture is so fuzzy, but maybe it's.
You look fine.
You should know who I am. So thank you, Mayor Morgan, for inviting me this morning. It's great to see the Vietnam vets. I think of them as my buddies, and to see Mike and Nathan and everyone else. It's great. Thank you. A Blue Star mom is a mother whose child is in the military serving and then would have transitioned out and is now back with the family. A Gold Star, that was something that was coined back World War II, when you had people in the military that you would put a Blue Star banner on your door so people would know that that particular family was serving. If someone was killed while serving or died while serving, a Gold Star was placed over the Blue Star. And so then you joined a group called Gold Star Families. And I am part of that group. I am a Gold Star mother. My oldest son was in the Air Force, Senior Airman Jonathan Antonio Vega Yellner. And he was killed in Afghanistan, April 29th, 2008. And it has been, if it had not been for the Blue Star mothers, if it had not been for organizations and people like Nathan and Mike and Bill, Lee, I don't know if I could put one step in front of the other, because I'll tell you, those Vietnam vets are they experienced the worst coming home, and they said that will never happen again. And I didn't experience that.
It's I know when you told me this story the first time that I definitely had to have the Kleenexes around, because it was I can't even imagine how to cope with something like that, and having this family. I feel the same about them in a sense of family, because whenever I'm around a veterans event or whatever it may be, I feel like I'm at home. It's that feeling of comfort and that feeling of knowing that people can relate to what you feel, although I could never understand what it felt like to do that, nor do I ever want to. So I can't even express how that must, in my heart, how that must have felt for you to get that. I know when my father was in Vietnam, she would watch the news continuously. And because then we didn't have internet, we didn't have email, we didn't have we didn't have those cell phones, we didn't have the opportunity. My mother would send a letter in hopes that he would receive it. And later on, when he was in Korea for a year, we would send cassettes over to him, because he was on the front line in Korea, on the border of the North. But for you, how did you find out, and what was, where were you? Were you?
I was at work. I was in my office, and I had a very busy schedule that day. Actually, that evening, I had spoken with Jonathan. He called me from Afghanistan. I have no idea how he did that. Regardless, we probably spoke for about 10 minutes. And then I said, Mommy loves you. Don't forget, come home in one piece, you little brat. And hung up. And the next day I went to work. And as I said, I had a very busy schedule. And my secretary called me and she said to me, Jolie, there is a gentleman here to see you. I didn't have any openings in my schedule to meet anybody, had a full schedule. And I said, who? And she said, his name is Bruce Yellner. Well, Bruce Yellner is my ex-husband and Jonathan's father. And I thought, what does he want now? And so I made him wait about 15 minutes and then sauntered out. And I looked at him and I said, what is it? And he said, I need to speak with you. About what? And at that point, my boss came out and she said, we have a conference room. And she took me to the executive conference room where we have confidential meetings. And I thought, what is going on? Am I getting fired? And so I walked into the room. Bruce walked in after me. And I turned around and two Air Force representatives with in their uniforms, looking very wonderful. And then Bruce said to me, it's about Jake. And I thought, what about him? And so then the gentleman said, ma'am, I need to inform you. And I said, you're lying. You guys, what the hell are you talking about? I was just on the phone with him last night. So, yeah, that's how I found out. And then the Blue Star Mothers came and helped. And then it's been a tough road ever since. You know, for the Gold Star families, as everybody in this meeting knows, we want our children and our loved ones to be remembered. That's, you know, that's for us. So I had the opportunity back in the 70s, actually in 72, I came on board with the Department of Defense, DOD, and was sent to Yokota Air Force Base and was there until 75 and flew into Viet Nam, Saigon, Laos and Cambodia. We weren't supposed to be there, but I was there and got to become very, very, very close with a lot of the Vietnam vets. So they're my buddies. I love those guys. And they're always welcoming to Gold Star families. Yeah.
You know, I'm gonna kind of come back and give myself a breath as well, out of respect for, you know, the story we just heard, and kind of go from there and, you know, maybe talk to Mike for a second. Mike, you have 3 sons that were serving in the military, one still serving in the military. That's got to be a difficult thing as well, knowing that they're, you know, they're in harm's way. What is that like for you and your wife?
Well, I'll just say, actually, it's 3 sons and 2 are still active. I think the thing for us was, people often ask us, well, how did you feel about having 3 sons all going to war at the same time, sometimes together? And, you know, I think Peggy put it very well. She said, I would rather them be together. They take care of each other. And so, you know, you can kind of feel alone in that kind of situation when, you know, not everybody in the community, like in World War II, World War I, was serving. I mean, it's a tremendous amount. On every street, you could see blue stars and gold stars. So this war was a little interesting and long, of course, but I would say the thing that gave us a lot of comfort was being surrounded by such wonderful people and groups, Vietnam veterans, American Legion, all of the veterans groups, Blue Star Moms. We all kind of banded together and took care of each other. That's would be expected. But, you know, after watching my brother serve in Vietnam, what wouldn't be accepted or expected would be the support from the community that we felt. That's a total change. You know, I was still in high school when my brothers were in Vietnam, but I remember it like it was yesterday. And so there has been a change. And so that was very, kind of helped us get through it. And then we both dived into supporting veterans and families and things. And that helped also because it kept us busy. It kept us around other parents and veterans who had been in the same place at one time or another. But I will say, I talk about this in my speeches across the nation, is that the heart of America for our military and our veterans is still very, very deep and strong. Now, the issue is, yes, they support the military and they support our veterans, but they really don't know what they do. And it's just not taught in civics classes and things like that anymore. So especially our young kids. In my speeches, I kind of gauge the audience, and in the middle of my speech, I'll say, hey, you remember that old song, Crosby, Stills and Nash, teach your children well? And everybody looks around and nods at each other and smiles, you know. Oh yeah, we remember that. And then I say, did you? Well, now they kind of look at each other like, what did he say? And I said, well, it's a question. Did you teach your children well? And then they get kind of serious looking, like, okay, you're kind of getting in our face, which I am. And I say, you know, it's never too late to talk to your children and your grandchildren about your military experience or the military experience and history of military experience in your family or extended family. Because if you're actually going to teach them well, there is nobody better than you to explain to them, for instance, the reason we have Veterans Day, you know, how this all evolved, because your children actually do listen, they do trust you, and it's just a matter of finding the right time to sit down with them and talk to them. And I just tell everybody, I think that's one of the best things you can do. Bill has been doing this with his speakers group for years in the high schools, and it's important, very important, and great work. Bill, you asked for some help at Santa Moon High School. There's a history teacher named Eric Melvin, who I know at Santa Moon, and I have talked to him about getting in contact with you, and I will double my efforts on that. But I will make it happen.
That's a great opportunity. You know, that's why, you know, coming together like this makes it, you know, so we know where the little, you know, glitches are, where we all can work together as a team, as we'd mentioned in the beginning, being a part of a team. So Bill, I'll get information to you as well for contacts, and, you know, offline, let's all make sure that we do that. You know, Mike, you took it a step further though. You talk to us about Sentinels of Freedom.
Sure. I wanted to just mention one more thing, because this is really a great moment of Danville being anointed as a Purple Heart city or town. And, you know, we experienced that call like Yolanda, that scared the hell out of us. And with one of my sons, my oldest.
And
well, he'd been wounded, but we didn't have any details, and that took another 24 hours. We didn't know if he was an amputee or we didn't know anything. So it's a scary, scary moment to get that call. And, we, as a city, San Ramon and Danville, we were very lucky because, as we talk about Sentinels, we actually started Sentinels, Ron Lowe and a few other business leaders and I, to honor the young men and women going into the military at graduation, because nobody was doing it. We had 3 high schools at that time. And so we started that program, and that program is still strong today. It's run by the veterans now. And every year we have a swearing in ceremony at the Danville Veterans Hall there. And, what we tell them is, our message, our promise, I guess, is, it's a promise. When you come home, whether it's 4 years or 20 years, we will be waiting for you. We're the centers of influence in this community. We're here to help. And so that's our promise. And of course, that was started in 1998. And then, of course, we go to war in 2001. And I went, I know we're going to have casualties. I know too many of these kids that have gone into combat arms from our community. It's going to happen. So we need a plan. So I got everybody together and they said, okay, yeah, develop a plan, but it hasn't happened yet. And so, if it happens, we'll react. And sure enough, in 2002, it did happen to one of our high school graduates from San Ramon, Jake Brown. He wasn't wounded in combat. He was crushed by an Abrams tank in a training accident in Germany, not expected to live. So he did. He pulled out of it, and we got him back here. He had nothing to come home to. Didn't have a house, didn't have a car, he didn't have a plan. So by the time he got here, my good friend Dan Coleman had arranged to get Chappelle Homes to give him an apartment for 4 years free rent.
Wow.
He had a little old lady who had a car that only had 20,000 miles on it, and she couldn't drive anymore, so she donated the car. UPS gave him a job, not throwing boxes because he could hardly walk. But they put him in this computer lab and trained him on that while he was going to college. Jake is now, got his master's degree. He's actually working for us now as a project manager in IT. And he became the model for Sentinels of Freedom, which is now about 630 across the nation. And they're with us for 4 years. Some of the other high points are that we've developed 6 different colleges. We've helped build student veterans resource centers on those colleges. Just in Contra Costa alone, there's 3 colleges, and that represents about 1,200 veterans that have access to those facilities every year. So that's a big accomplishment, and we're very proud of it. The next one is, I've always been in the land development building business. I've been speaking in front of city councils for several years about good quality projects, as long as the developer will agree to do something for veterans. And the latest one, I'm going to a ribbon cutting in Millbrae on the 10th, Gateway BART, it's called, Public Homes. They asked me to help them, and I did. And what came out of that is that 80 of their apartments are going to be designated below market rent, veteran preferred. Now that's a first in the Bay Area, and I hope that
That's wonderful.
other developers emulate that. So that's other things. We're always doing something. We have a new partnership with a group called Udemy, which provides just free distance learning on everything you can imagine to our veterans, and they've asked us to be the beta for that, which is incredible. And then lastly, I think we did a partnership trade, I guess you'd call it, with Australia. We brought one of their wounded veterans here, and we sent one of ours down there for master's degree. So we did this swap, and it's they're both back in country now and doing very well. And then, kind of lastly, well, about the middle of October, we hosted a dinner at the Army Navy Club in Washington, D.C. for 100 people. It was not a fundraiser. It was to thank all of the corporations, all the individuals who had supported not only us, but all the various veterans groups. And the highlight of the evening was we invited all the nurses and doctors from the Amputee Center at Walter Reed to be our guests. And it was just incredible because some of these guys had been out of that hospital for 10 years, moved on through college, and now working at Deloitte and AT&T and all this stuff. They hadn't seen these doctors or nurses for 10 years. And the nurses and doctors always wondered what happened to them.
Sure.
And so when they came together, it was really wonderful to watch because you could see the nurses and doctors kind of nodding their head going, we did a good job.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
could see the young guys looking at them saying, thank you. So it was surreal. Yeah. So a lot of good stuff.
A lot of great stuff. Walter Reed, having had the opportunity to visit my father there, what a really neat piece of history as well. Walter Reed is such an interesting hospital. The amount of wings. When I went there to visit my father, they had the Desert Storm wing for all the people that came back, especially with all the germ warfare and all of that.
Right.
We're talking about Purple Hearts, and I wanted to bring somebody on. It's taken a while. My father is also a Purple Heart recipient and highly decorated Command Sergeant Major, and very proud of him, if you can't tell by now, who passed. And one of the things that was really near and dear to my heart was the fact that so many of you give your heart and soul to our country. And some of you receive medals of Bronze Stars and you name it. But one thing that most of us, you don't celebrate, but you receive is a Purple Heart. Danville this year, it's taken a long time because of the fact of the pandemic, but we have Charles Earthman with us today, who is the Northern California chapter of the Purple Heart and the trail of the National Purple Heart. And proud to say that Danville has received that distinguished title, and we'll be doing our ceremony, our unveiling of our plaque on Veterans Day as well at 1 o'clock. Charles, can you tell us a little bit about why it's so important for us to have that designation as a town?
Thank you for having me, Mayor Morgan, first of all, on this show. For Danville, which is being a veteran, I'm the only veteran here that's not from Danville, but I'm very proud to be here and to represent Purple Heart. You wanted to know about the Purple Heart designation. The state of California was the first Purple Heart state. And currently, there are, of course, Purple Heart states all over and towns and cities, but there's also Purple Heart trails and other designations that have been given to this organization. There are, in our organization, we try to give our group some a look from the public at us, and these designations help us, and so we're happy to have Danville come on board as a Purple Heart town, and so that's what Purple Heart does in terms of notifying towns and states and counties of our efforts to be recognized.
And it's so important. And I think we've mentioned this several times throughout the program was, that the recognition and never forgetting, and having that plaque installed on the Veterans Memorial Building on the 11th is a constant reminder of those that gave not just some, but gave all on that battlefield. And we are so honored to be able to have that and present that proclamation, not only to our vets, but at a national level to present that from Danville, proclaiming our town as recognizing the Purple Hearts. So, and a majority of you have received Purple Hearts or have a son that has received Purple Heart, and you carry on that. I don't want to not have the opportunity to talk to Nathan and then bring it back to all of you, if you don't mind. Nathan, you know, when my father passed away from Agent Orange, there weren't very many avenues to pursue to find vet services for my mother, to get that information. You know, as we've said before, the internet wasn't there for the searching. You know, you just didn't have those resources. You are that resource for our area, for veterans that need to get information, for veterans that need help. And you've helped so many. And I know that I've even reached out to you way back when our veterans told me where to reach out to. What is it exactly? What would you say is some of the things that you would consider that veterans really need right now, and the services that are not being sought after by current veterans? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Morgan, and thank you all the panelists. It's an honor to be a part of this with you today. There's constantly a need for outreach to find veterans and inform them about VA benefits, but mostly to encourage them to apply for them and to receive them. Many veterans, like myself, are humble and afraid to take a benefit away from another veteran, or they feel like they're not deserving. They feel like they could have given more to their country. But what's important is that veterans understand that these are benefits that are available to them for their honorable service from our country. We have a very generous nation who wants to thank our veterans for their service. And that's what these benefits are. They're the way that our country is saying thank you. So they're not welfare benefits, and we're not taking away a benefit from another veteran by using it. Having been part of the system now for almost 20 years, I've seen firsthand that when a veteran applies for a benefit, it grows the overall program. The VA adds more. An example is the Vet Center program. 2004, there was only 50 of them. And now there's over 300 nationwide, because more veterans, and thanks to the Viet Nam vets reaching out to Iraq and Afghanistan vets, more veterans are using that program, and so it grows. Compensation for injuries is one of the most important. Healthcare for treatment of injuries is even more important. But I'd also encourage veterans that if they're hesitant to say yes to applying for these benefits, to think about how some of them will impact their families in a positive way. For example, a California tuition fee waiver. Many veterans in the community don't know that if they have a service-connected injury recognized by the VA, their dependents, their children, may be able to go to college for free in the state of California. If they go to a community college or a CSU or a UC in the state of California, they can apply through our office for a tuition fee waiver. So by a veteran saying, you know, I don't really deserve these benefits, I don't want to take it away from another veteran, they may in fact actually be taking the benefit away from their family. And when we help veterans understand that, generally they're much more willing to say, okay, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go seek out the County Veteran Service Office, which, by the way, is right there in the Danville Veterans Memorial Building on Wednesdays. And we thank the town for that, and we thank the veterans for providing that space. So when they come into our office at the Veterans Memorial Building and we help them apply, then we can help deliver that benefit to their dependent. Another just very simple, and I know we're running out of time, but if a veteran doesn't want compensation for their injuries, if they don't want to use the VA healthcare system, one simple benefit that they can take advantage of now is adding the word veteran to their driver's license. In 2015, the state of California finally allowed veterans to do that. And so now through our office, we can verify a form to DMV And that veteran then takes the form and pays a small little nominal $5 fee, and the word veteran is put on their driver's license for the rest of their life. So they can proudly show that driver's license to whoever they want, or just look at it themselves. Or what some veterans like to do is get some discounts at local retailers. So lots to take advantage of. Thank you.
Lots to take advantage of. And, you know, one of the things that you had mentioned as well is the pride factor. And I know that, you know, up until recently, the PTSD was something that nobody wanted to say because you got, you know, blacklisted. Even if you were in the military, you didn't want to tell somebody that you were having issues with that or repercussions from it because of the fact that people would look at you like, oh, you're just being a wimp about it. But I think that what you're telling us is it's not about that. It's about getting the services and the help that you need, and it's there for you. Maybe perhaps you could, you know, put into the chat line as well a way to get in touch with you. And if somebody else has comments or questions for you after the program is over, that we can also give them your contact information to get in touch with you about that, because it seems to me as though a lot of these services are so important to give to our veterans and their families, as you have mentioned, because, you know, ultimately, as Yolanda can attest to, as well as, you know, and Michael, we're not in the military, but we were there with them. And it's important for us as dependents to make sure that we're taken care of in that situation as well. So it's a difficult road to be on. You know, I could go on and on with all of you for hours, because I know that this is something that is very interesting to a lot of people. People are asking us, what's Agent Orange? People are asking us, you know, what does it do to you, and things like that. But that's another topic, which would be another, you know, hour program, because it is something that has affected people in a lot of different ways. With my father, it was esophagus. And, you know, at that time we were talking about different benefits and everything else. DuPont stopped giving benefits after the age of 60 at that time. Once, if you got it after the age of 60, then you were considered no payout there. And my father passed at the age of 63. So it's just an interesting, you know, look at and just a peek into what our veterans do, who our veterans are in our community, the services that are there, the honoring that we do from Danville. We honor our veterans. We respect our veterans. I encourage everybody to come out on Veterans Day. The program begins at 11 o'clock. Am I correct? It's 11 o'clock that our program begins. The dedication of the Purple Heart will be at 1 p.m. At the Vets Hall. And come see the wonderful displays that our veterans have put together for all of us to taste a bit of history of who we are, where we've come from, and why we live in the country that we do. For all of you being here today with me, it's been a very emotional and moving program for me. And I hope that all of you that have been watching feel the same way, and gives us a new respect, pride, and dedication to who we know to be our veterans. So thank you to all of you for being here today. Stay positive, test negative, and let's keep in touch. Thank you for joining us.